said to the players just before we ran out onto the field, this is going to be my last one. I don't want to. I'd prefer not to finish a loser.
Well, thanks for joining us on a special State of Origin edition of Queenslander, brought to you with thanks from Tab. I'm Adam Jackson, joined by the Maroons legends, Darren Locky and Wally Lewis. And boys, we've finally got a Queensland team, but Locky, it was a pretty dramatic 24 hours selecting the team, a few players in, out. How did it all go down?
Yeah, well, as I say every week, you just want everyone to stay fit and healthy, but we lost a few over the weekend.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I guess you have players on a secondary list that, you know, if something does happen, they're the next people up, so to speak. And, you know, one person's disappointment becomes an opportunity for others, and that's what's happened here, you know. So we lost Murray, you know, Cobbo, he's got a lot of niggling injuries. Gilbert.
Yeah, Gilbert's a shame, hey?
Yeah.
Do you think he would have been in the team? More than likely?
Yeah. He would have been in the team. I mean, he's a bit like Ruben Cotter. He's built for State of Origin. So that was, obviously disappointing for Tom because, you know, that's a long-term injury again.
Yeah.
But it gives someone like Beau Fermor an opportunity. And, you know, another debutant will be Robert Toya.
Yeah, the big Toya story that everyone's talking about. What do you think about that, Wal?
Quite remarkable. But, Adam, I think you've got to say that we haven't seen too much of him at all, but the Roosters games, I haven't seen too many of those, but he's obviously been on display in each game that he's played. And when you think about these guys that are about to come into to the Origin team, we've all been there. And we've all been selected for the first time and been very nervous about getting that opportunity. I think it's one of those opportunities now where he has the world at his feet. And certainly with so many talented players around him, he's not about to let Queensland down at all. It'll be a bright display.
Well, one of the things about Robert, he's been through 2 ACLs in the last few years.
And a broken jaw.
Yeah, and a broken jaw. And then, so you put all that, you unpack all that, and then he's only played 10 games.
Yeah, 10 games. Yeah. Hadn't played NRL till this year.
Yeah. He's obviously a huge talent.
Yeah.
And look, his opportunities come on the back of some injuries, but well deserved, and looking forward to seeing him in our own jersey. Yeah,
and of course we've got Locky included. We've got some wonderful selectors in place, and they've obviously had a look at him. And usually, I'm not sure what Darren would have been done, but there are occasions where you go back and you put the rewind button on just to see how these players perform, and certainly to have the skills to be able to impress our selectors. I think he can take a nice deep breath and feel very comfortable about the selection.
And he was a schoolboy star. He came through the systems of the Redcliffe Dolphins. Also played a fair bit of rugby union with Nudgee. Had an undefeated season with Nudgee. But 2 of the games he's played are at Suncorp Stadium in front of big crowds against the Dolphins and the Roosters. How much would that help?
Dolphins and the Broncos.
Dolphins and the Broncos, for the Roosters, obviously. How much would that have helped Locky as a selector? Well, he can actually handle a big crowd.
Yeah, well, he was very good against Herbie Farnworth.
Yep.
I think, did Katoni play that night? I think he did, maybe not. Anyway, but he's also marked Latrell Mitchell.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So that's a bit of a tick. I guess he's, he knows what he's up against. Mind you, I think that was Latrell's first game back after a layoff.
Yeah, yep.
So Latrell will be obviously, he'll be hard to handle, but I'm sure Billy will go through the game plan defensively with Robert, and he'll be ready.
Yep.
And Adam, we've got selectors that have got a fair bit of experience in having a look at blokes that are handy centres, Locky working inside them to feed them or running them off as a fullback, and Gino as a former centre himself. So I think everybody can take a nice deep breath and feel fairly comfortable with the selection.
How's it work, Locky, on Sunday night? Are you in like a WhatsApp group or is it a Zoom chat? Or what's happening? Because it's such an evolving situation.
It's a phone call, a merged phone call.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Because, we had to wait till the 4 o'clock game was done because the Titans were playing. And, we had some players, in the South game that we were considering, but, I think you get to that 6 o'clock and that's when we would typically have that phone hook up and go through the situation, obviously, the first thing you update is who's unavailable.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, Gilbert, Tuolangi.
Cobbo was still a question mark.
Yeah.
Even Carrigan at that stage with his mouth injury.
Yeah. So you go through the injuries first, and then you go through the team sort of 1 to 20 now.
Yeah.
You've got to pick 18, 19, 20. And look, 18 Kurt Mann, he'll actually sit on the sideline.
Yeah.
Because he could be activated in the game. So who you pick at 18 is pretty important too.
Because Felice Kafusi had to play game 1 last year when the high tackle with Swiley on Walsh.
Yeah, and Adam, I don't think it's any surprise to you. You've been listening to it over the last couple of years, but I'm president of the Reuben Cotter fan club. Love watching him play. He's a remarkable workhorse and pops up at the most desperate of times to volunteer for some work, and he gets on with that. And the amount of times that I've seen him involved in desperate tackles close to the line, so close to the line that you got to question, would somebody else have got there? I'm sure he'll have 12 mates that will volunteer for that, but he's a wonderful player, and I've always enjoyed watching him play. How often he volunteers is quite remarkable.
Yeah,
I think if you said what does a Queensland State of Origin player look like, you can go Reuben Cotter.
Yeah. And the good part is he's coming in fresh. Like, the bad part for the Cowboys is he's suspended, but he's such a workaholic player. So from a Queensland perspective, he comes in fresh. Beau Fermor on the bench, how much did his versatility help him?
Yeah, I think versatility is a part of it, but I think he's been, the Titans have been, a bit patchy, hit and miss.
Yeah.
But he's been very good.
Yeah.
He's a back rower that does his job very well, but then also comes up with some brilliant plays in attack.
Yeah.
Whether it's chasing a kick through, he's a very instinctive back rower. So congratulations to Beau, and I'm sure this is something he's dreamt about for a while, and he's got the opportunity, and I'm sure he'll do well for Queensland.
Yeah, I think Locky hit the nail on the head there. It's not easy on occasions to be the standout player and get notice from the selectors, particularly if you're in a team that's doing it a little bit tough. And on occasions, the Titans have struggled in different times, but he's been the volunteer to be the star of the show for them, and it's quite rewarding for him to gain selection.
I'd hate to think how the Titans would be going if Beau Fermor and Tina weren't playing in that team at the moment. Yeah. They could be lower than 17th if possible with the extra clubs coming in. But Tom Dearden, new role for him, bit of a surprise, maybe Locky. How do you think he will handle that, and what do you think, how will he be used?
Look, he's a competitor, Tom, and he's a bit like when Mel used Sean Berrigan at sort of 14, then he had Cooper Cronk, and then Ben Hunt's sort of done that role. Yeah. And these guys, they've got to be prepared to be able to play in the middle of the field. Yeah. So Tom he could potentially play at hooker. If Harry needs a break, or if Harry, hopefully, fingers crossed, the hamstring holds up, but. He could play 9, and I think he could be effective there. He could also play 13. Yeah. Come on and be that link player like Cooper Cronk used to be before he became part of the starting team. So, but the thing, a bit like the Reuben Cotter scenario, he's just a competitor. He competes.
Yeah, magic word, Locky, a competitor, and that's exactly what he is. He never gives up. He volunteers for work in the toughest of times. And I remember watching a couple of Cowboys games where they just managed to stop a try being scored against them, and the first cut out from their own try line. Who's volunteering for it? Tom. Yeah. And he's running straight up the middle, and that's the type of player that you'd love to have in your team 7 days a week. He does that. Yet he's still got enough in the energy stocks to be able to be involved in the backline plays at the other end of the field just moments later. So, a wonderful selection.
And take you back to the series decider last year at Suncorp Stadium. Game 1 this year will also be played at Suncorp Stadium, Locky. With all the talent in the team, Queensland didn't score a try in that game. So how does Billy unlock the speed and excitement in that back line, given you've got now Ponga, Hammer, Xavier Coates, Val Holmes? You guys were the experts at getting the best out of outside backs. How do you do that?
Well, the forwards need to lay a platform. You need to get some ruck speed going. So, DC, remember Munster wasn't there, but if he's got some time and space and he becomes hard to handle, and then the rest of it just falls into place. So, we were missing some middle forwards last year.
Yeah.
And losing Tom on the eve of Origin didn't help, but Tino's back.
Yeah.
So again, just winning, trying to win that ruck, that middle of the field, get some, quick play the ball speed. That'll allow those halves and outside backs to get some opportunities.
I'm sure Locky would have experienced the same amount of claims from the forwards in his playing days, when they used to remind you about they did all the hard work. It's all right for you backs to show off and go putting the ball down after we've done all of the hard work and been quite creative. So I think that that's exactly what's going to happen once again in this one.
And you mentioned the forward depth. I think there's a bit of extra aggression this year in the forwards, not just with Tino, but the bench too. Like Lindsay Collins, that big body, always gets fighter. And Trent Loiero has been quite aggressive for the Storm.
Yeah, he's a big body, and he comes out of a system that's got good coaching. In Craig Bellamy, and so got good habits. I think he made 36 tackles against the Shark on the weekend, and he missed the one. So very good in defence. And he can ball play if need be. So, again, congratulations to Trent. He's earned his right to be in the team. And, again, if you're making your debut for Queensland, there's probably no better place to do it than Suncorp.
Yep.
And he gets the bonus. They're in camp on the Sunshine Coast. He's from the Sunshine Coast too, so we'll probably have a few family and friends watching them train up at Twin Waters. Just quickly, not that we care too much, the New South Wales side. Anything surprise you there? For mine, I was surprised that Turbo's not in there somewhere.
Watching him the other night, like he still, when he wanted to push the go button, he was still very fast.
Yeah.
But he still looks a bit lame.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, that's the only reason why he wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I don't think he's 100% fit.
Yeah, I reckon there would have been a telephone call go through to him, Locky, with the question of what percentage do you reckon you are at the moment? And he's always been a very honest player, and he's probably said, I'm not in peak condition at the moment. I'd love to be there, but he just doesn't appear as though he's in full fitness.
Yeah, and for mine, controlling Latrell Mitchell will be huge in this series for Queensland.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah. I think just in the last couple of weeks, I think when he slotted that field goal, he just grew another foot.
Yeah.
And he played, like on the weekend, I think he got called back, but when he started throwing defenders off him and stepping and running, it's pretty scary when that starts to happen. So, look, that is a big job. But I'm sure Billy and the coaching staff and the players will have a plan in place to deal with it. Yeah,
I think there was two people extremely happy with what they saw there, Locky. One was his club coach, the other one the New South Wales coach, realising that he's getting back there. He's not far off it, and he's had a rather large carrot dangled in front of him, and he's decided to take a huge bite out of that. As we continue on with our Origin chat here on Queenslander, Robert Toyer was actually speaking early in the day, did an interview with 9 News, saying he thought it was a prank call. He thought one of his Roosters teammates were playing a joke on him. Him and his partner, he had it on speakerphone, and he had to be reassured by Billy that it wasn't a joke. But take you guys back, how did you first find out that you were going to make your Origin debut, Wal? I got a telephone call. An old school telephone call, not a telephone call. Like one of those ones? Gene Miles used to say that to me all the time. Telephones had not been invented when you got your first one. But to be honest, I got the call, but we used to listen to the radio. Oh, yeah. Because every now and then they'd announce the team that had just been selected, and I was very hopeful. I was probably getting a little bit too cocky. And after getting a call, and it was from my club coach, and Ross Strudwick. And I got the call from him, and there was a little bit of a hole back there as well. But I was just, after that moment, just enormously nervous about the task at hand, but the full realisation of this was the day that I'd been waiting for all of my life. How old would have you been then too? I've put you on the spot here. Maybe 20, 21? 20. Yeah. So same age as Robert Toyer. So like. For the Origin one? Yeah, for the Origin. Yeah, for the Origin one, it was 20. It was a year after the first one, and for my first year in the Queensland side, there used to be a bit of a joke that if you got selected, come up with an injury so you can pull out of the team. You don't really want to play. Such was the disrespect from the New South Wales people on it. But when Origin was around and the opportunity to play with a forward or at lock forward behind Arthur Beetson, John Lang, Rod Morris, Rowan Hancock and Rod Reddy.
Yeah.
The best in the business, and I thought I'd been crossing my fingers for quite some time, but to have the chance to do that, it was a real thrill.
Because did you play lock?
I was a lock forward.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. I wasn't a very fast lock forward, but I was an even slower 5'8".
Yeah.
So I'd got the chance, and I can remember Arthur saying to me later, mate, you're not a lock forward, you're a 5'8". And I discussed that with him for a while. I'd played in the backs in rugby, in union. I played in the centres where I was an even slower centre.
Well, you had the Ella brothers there doing everything for you.
Yeah, had them doing that. But to have the chance to be able to do that and play behind a pack like that was quite remarkable, because there were two of the most skillful ball handlers that I've ever seen, and clever at offloading past Arthur Beetson, who was magnificent, and Rod Reddy.
Yeah.
Who was just as good as Arthur at being able to put a ball in a hole for you and make the job at hand as simple as anything.
What about you, Locky? Who called you first time Origin?
It would have been my club coach.
So Wayne Bennett?
Yeah. So in '98 was when game one I made my debut, and we'd won the '97 Super League Grand Final. We flew out of the blocks in '98, which we eventually won in '98 as well. But we had 11 Broncos in the State of Origin team. So it sort of almost felt like I was just, even though this was such a special moment for me. I played in the Super League
Tri-Series? That's what it was called, yeah.
Which, obviously not the same.
Yeah.
So then, we moved back to the competition coming back together and the ARL. And so '98, that was my first debut for Queensland. It was at the SFS. It was the game where we won at the death. So it was a special game, but it was like going into camp with the Broncos. There was 11 of us, but it was still a special moment, and obviously one that you always cherish. And the fact that the game panned out that way, I've never forgotten it.
Yeah. So was it a phone call from Wayne, or did you see him in person? Or
no, he was pretty much ringing. Well, he probably didn't have to ring Alf. He didn't have to ring a few of them, but he rang, while I was making my debut, so he rang a few of us to let us know we're in the team.
Yeah, such a special moment. And to think now, there's actually only one Bronco in the Maroons team today. It's hard to believe such was the dominance back in the day. Paddy Carrigan, the sole representative. Well, we also have a new segment during Origin here on our Queenslander show, the Maccas Moment. While your last game, your memories of that.
We had a decider to play, and we'd been pretty good in the build-up to it, and I think that we were handling it quite well. And then we came around to the day of the game, and we had a training session the day before the game, and I had to go with my daughter, who was having some tests done, and her mother and I went, and we were expecting to be there 20 minutes, half an hour, and we were there for about 2 or 3 hours waiting for an assessment to be made. And I found out, Jackie and I found out that Jamie Lee was profoundly deaf. I can remember the feeling when the doctor came out and said, "Is there somewhere we can go?" And as soon as he said that, I knew it was bad news coming. Jack collapsed on the floor, and I can remember the doctor talking to me, but I don't remember a single word of it. Just at the end, and I then jumped in the car to go to the last training session, and when I walked in, all of the players have just gone, oh, here he is, the world's fattest 5'8", late for a training session again. Oh, good timing, well done, Wall. And then Tosser Turner actually made his way to the players one by one and just said, he's just found out his daughter's profoundly deaf. And they all went really quiet at the end of it, and there was a bit of a pat on the back. We'll win this one, and I got the chance to play the next day or the next night and be able to achieve success. And it was while I was up there, I actually said, "That's it. I'm going to finish up." There's things in this world that are much more important than footy, and your family's one of them. And it wasn't sort of the approach to a game that I had in mind, and I don't think I played anywhere near my best game. It was a shocker actually, and but you know, I think we all realise that your family are wonderfully important things.
Did you have an inkling that you were going to retire before that news? Or?
No.
No, so that news was the catalyst.
Yeah, no, I think I would have liked to have played on, but I do remember talking to the doc and was very hopeful that he was going to tell us that there is a possibility that she'll be able to hear, but he said no, and pretty much I think, you know, we're all. We know what it's like to be family, man, and to have your children there, and it was just a pretty simple decision, really, to go ahead, and that was it. I got the chance to be able to do it, and I said to the players just before we ran onto the field, this is going to be my last one. I don't want to. I'd prefer not to finish a loser.
Yeah.
They all had a bit of a smile, and they were wonderful. Hugely supportive that day. I had a shocker in my last game, but all of the Queensland spirit that was in the side ensured that I went home with a smile on my face.
Is it true too they announced it on the loudspeaker, I think, at half-time? Like, am I getting that confused with something?
Apparently they did.
You were obviously in the dressing rooms or something, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really remember it. I thought it was sort of halfway through the second half.
Oh, they announced it to the crowd. Yeah, okay.
They said it to the crowd, and I asked Tosser about that. Did it happen? And he said we needed to inspire the crowd a little bit. So, yeah, that was the way it was, and it was wonderful support from Queensland fans again.
Do you remember watching that game, Locky?
Well, the thing that I remember is the image of Wall. I think you were recovering from a broken arm.
Yeah,
you had the big wheelie bin on.
Yeah.
And then did you have? Was it Lincoln? Did you have Link?
Yeah, Mitchell and Lincoln came out onto the field, and I had to carry Link around, and Mitchell was running around. Just enjoying being out in the middle on Lang Park.
Also, I think you might have had a split eye.
Yeah.
You had a split eye. I just remember the arm up, the split eye, and had the kids there. So.
Yeah, I remember it was my last game. I remember my father said, "You put your head in the wrong position in that tackle. That's why you split your eye." Thanks, Dad. That was good. That's
was that
support.
Was that the series where the cans got thrown on the field?
Yeah,
right.
There was multiple.
So,
multiple in the first game. Yeah.
Oh, so many Origin highlights from the King that we can keep talking about. But before we wrap it up here today, we're going to talk a bit about the Broncos. Normally, Lockie, we dedicate an entire show to Broncos being in crisis. Another loss. I think that's 5 losses from their past 6. You know, do you think maybe in a way the Origin period comes at a good time to quieten the noise there a bit?
Oh yeah. Look, I mean, it's disappointing. I think the players, I think everyone at the club felt like that was a must-win game. And look, 26 points is enough to win a footy game.
Yeah.
I think when Madge has a focus on defence and we let in 30, that's disappointing. Scored some good. I mean, I guess one of the positives was Ezra back, and Ezra was very good. But there's obviously there's some work to be done there, and if that team, we've seen what they're capable of, and they can be a top 4 team if they can get the consistency that's required to be a top 4 team. So that's the frustrating part. They're just not finding that consistency across an 80-minute game and across week to week.
Yeah, it's hard to believe too that team flogged the Bulldogs, who were top of the table, just a few weeks ago. So it's a rollercoaster ride for you Broncos fans out there. What do you think's gone wrong with them? Well,
I think if it was that easy, Adam, they wouldn't be going through it.
Yeah.
The coach certainly would have already given them that indication, but it really was unfortunate, and there was a lot of suggestions about unrest in the team, which always seems to bob up when a team have some losses. But I felt pretty good about some of the players and the way that they performed. It was just one of those matches, and I thought the big boys up front were certainly getting through their fair share of work. Just unfortunately, they weren't able to be super creative on the edge of the ruck and really make things very difficult for the opposition's defence.
And talking about that unrest too, Locky, it looks as though the club will part ways with Martin Talpool, the veteran forward, for liking an Instagram post. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
there's more to it.
Oh, look, it's been been dealt with, and I think Madge makes he doesn't make any excuses. The fact that he likes to come in and get players to work hard.
Yeah.
It was a tough off season, but he also reminds everyone, when Melbourne Storm, Penrith Panthers won on the back of hard work.
Yeah.
So, you need it. You have to do it. Yeah, and I say, got to sacrifice to be successful. And it was just unfortunate for Marty to social media can be dangerous at times.
Yeah.
Adam, I think one of the surprising things for me, which is typical after a loss, I guess, where the reports seem to circulate almost instantly that Adam Reynolds was about to retire. Was this going to be the time?
This season, it was going to retire at the end.
Retire at the end, sorry.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the point, but unfortunately it wasn't their best performance, and to be realistic, every team has a tough performance throughout the course of the season where they're not wonderful performers every single game. They do have some poor performances on some occasions, and this was one that drew a fair bit of heavy criticism to them.
Yeah, I think not making any excuses, but also I've got to give a bit of credit to the Dragons.
Yeah.
I thought Gutherson was. I don't know. He just in I don't know whether it's the big games or that stadium. He just seems to every time he comes up, he just plays well.
They've been better than they've got credit for, I think, the Dragons. So they've beaten the Storm and the Broncos this year. The week before, they only lost by a point to the Warriors, who are coming second. So they're not too bad, the Dragons. I think what Wall was alluding to there too with Adam Reynolds, he mentioned on Triple M, I think it was, that he would consider retiring if there wasn't enough money to keep the likes of Selwyn Cobbo. I guess that's the kind of selfless act if he's prepared to do that.
Oh, yeah, look, I think, I mean, if Adam is physically and mentally keen to keep playing, then, I don't think he should be thinking he has to make way for others.
Yeah.
If he feels confident that he can play and contribute and do what he does and do it well consistently, then I think you just keep playing.
Yeah. And your advice to him wouldn't be to go to the Gold Coast and be captain coach? That would be a bad move, Wall. Don't do that at the back end of your career?
Yeah, back end of the career. It didn't turn out to be the best performance by me, but I've got to say, in defence of the Gold Coast, my performances were nowhere near where they should have been, and I owe an apology to the Gold Coast. But
that must have been one of the last captain-coach
scenarios.
Yeah,
it was the last one.
In the NRL. I mean, that just seems unfathomable that even happened.
It happened,
How
Well,
talk us through how that worked.
Malcolm Clift was the coach in the first year that I had, and so things didn't progress all that nicely throughout the course of the season, and I had an inquiry or a request from a few of the players. Brent Todd was one, Chris Close was another. They said, mate, you've got to take on the captain coach role. You can't stop. You've got to take it on, and I did. There were a couple of other guys that approached me, and I've got to say that it was not my best year at all. It was a pretty poor performance. I often say it was the worst year that I've ever had in my football career.
Yeah.
And I just got confused. I hadn't learnt enough about coaching, or in particular how to be a captain coach, to be able to do it. I'd been coached by the best in Bennett, who was very good at offering advice on what to do in tight situations, but it was a fairly poor performance. And to be honest, I tried to run away from the task at hand rather than work harder, and I kind of felt that wasn't really a part of my previous performances. So if I can't do that and I can't put in my best performances, it's time to retire, get out, finish up.
That sounds like a lot of sleepless nights. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah. And last one on the Broncos too, like a bit of the brouhaha about that boat trip. You think that's a Storm and Teacup? When they went down to Sydney a couple of days before the game, Madge took them on that alleged cruise.
Yeah, no, Storm and a Teacup.
Yeah.
Like, there was no alcohol involved. They had a motivational speaker there. So I think this is what happens. You lose a few games and everything gets put under the microscope. So what's done's done. I think they move on. Their next focus now is obviously they got a bye, which is handy.
Yeah.
But then Manly in Manly is not
Yeah,
an easy
okay,
assignment. But anyway, let's see what they've got then.
Yep. And our last.
And usually I think I think the Broncos, we've seen some of their best performances after embarrassing losses or painful losses. So I'd be quite confident that they're about to produce it. I don't think Madge would have been in a good mood particularly. And he's been regarded as somebody that can bring the best out of the players at difficult times. And certainly I'm sure the supporters and the club would be hoping that's about to come into play the next performance.
Yeah, definitely for all you Broncos fans out there. Last one now before we go and wrap it up, our tab big call as we do every week. Boys, what are you thinking? My big call is going to be money is back with a bang for the Maroons. So Cameron Munster to win Player of the Series, the Wally Lewis medalist for this year in Origin.
Harry Grant, man of the match.
Game one. Ooh, relishing that starting number 9 jersey.
Now, I won't say Harry Grant because I know that you're almost sick of me talking about Harry Grant over the last couple of years. I'll go to Cam Munster. I think being a chief playmaker and he's sort of towards the end of his career, you love to be able to lead by example in matches like that. And I think that his experience that he'll have on board and those that he has around him will allow him to produce arguably his finest performance in Origin.
Yeah, can't wait to see Cameron Munster back in that Queensland jersey. Game 1 at Suncorp Stadium. You'll catch all the build-up and you'll see it live and free next Wednesday night on the Wide World of Sports.